So what I'm going to be doing is some preliminary testing on consoles I've put together. These two just got finished battery testing, so I need to get the information for them. This first one is a bronze DSi XL. Serial WW409329030. And then this is a blue DSi XL WW446017761. The bronze had a battery of 4 hours and 20 minutes. Blue had 4 hours and 10 minutes. Both very good. Now I just keep these little sheets of paper with these consoles and I write down any notes as I go. Grab my R4 card back out of here. And I guess I'll start with this blue console. I'll be more or less doing the same protocol that I have in my assessment forms. So firstly, I want to do motherboard, power board, and just kind of look at the screens, see if I notice anything. Dust under the digitizer, the lens. Very mild yellowing on this bottom screen. Oh, that's unfortunate. This top screen lens needs to be replaced. Yeah, I doubt it would come up in the camera, but there is a scratch. You can kind of see it. Just that little bit of discoloring as I sort of rotate the camera around. It's hardly noticeable. That's how I missed it the first time around. So I can get that replaced. I just have a boatload of lenses that I ordered. Okay. And first see if I can just get this off without taking the screen off. Usually this doesn't work because I end up yanking the adhesive out. Sometimes I get lucky though. Kind of like that time. Now it's going to be a game of trying to keep dust out and finding the bottom of this lens. like a mat, okay? So this is the bottom. So there's should be a really thin layer of plastic that I need to peel off. I'm just gonna put it on. It looks awful, but there's another peel on top. And, well, sort of the problem that I usually have with these screens, or these lenses, you can tell. This is brand new, I just put it on. Has like residue on it from something, some chemical that they're spraying on these things. It's always a crapshoot with kind of the condition I get these in. And it's on the underside, of course. I'm getting very close. A little bit of persistence, a chem wipe, and a microfiber cloth will do anything, I suppose. I hate it when it does that. Still a cluster of okay, that looks pretty good. I couldn't get all the dust, and there's still some, like, chemical residue, whatever they sprayed on it, but I don't believe it will impact what I see on the screen. Yep, I don't see any of that coming through. Get rid of all that. Test one. So what I notice immediately is the bottom screen has very mild yellowing. Now, I mean, when I mean very minor, I'm like bottom corners just very slightly. Like you can tell it's not the same color as the center of the screen. But to the untrained eye, I don't think most people would even see it. And once you start playing games on it, you won't see it. So, motherboard, power board, boots up. That's usually what I look for. It's a little more complex than that, but for now, it boots up. Next is tactile buttons. So this will be testing all the face buttons. And it's just going to be me pressing them several times and seeing if they match up with my pace. Usually the ABYX never have a problem, unless there's greater problems with water damage or corrosion, which this board didn't have. Start and select buttons are kind of the same way. D-pad can be a little hit and miss sometimes. Functionally speaking, they should be about the same as the face buttons because they're the same type of style of buttons, but I notice sometimes the D-pads wear out, or maybe just a little bit of corrosion gets to them. It's possible because I swap power boards around because they're not married to the motherboard, that I'm pulling a power board out of a more corroded console, or compared to the motherboard, of course. And then the shoulder buttons can be a little bit hit and miss. Like right here, R button isn't registering. Now the trick will be, can I get it to register at all? I can't even, nothing's even popping up for it. L button seems to be fine. Okay, so let me look into that. It's entirely possible that maybe I didn't even plug it in. I find that to be very unlikely. It's more likely that the button is just bad and needs to be replaced. Since I couldn't get it to register at all, I'm betting on cleaning won't be the issue, or cleaning won't do anything significant, so I might just have to outright replace it. But we'll just see. I'm gonna just look at it. So it is plugged in. I'll just put this off screen for now. Now I know with these ribbon cables, sometimes if I'm a little too rough on them, they'll tear right there. I haven't done that in a long time, so I'm not exactly saying that that will be the problem. I didn't check the SD card slot, so just get all the hardware out. The button itself should be fine. It's got like, yeah, around the SD card there's like fuzz, but nothing really. Nothing that would tell me this button doesn't work. So what I can do is test continuity at the button. If I get a pass through, then it's probably an issue with this ribbon cable or the connector. I can look into it a little closer. It's more likely that these buttons just wear out or have corrosion in them. I'm getting nothing. See if I get any resistance. Nothing. Let me try cleaning it before I just go out replacing it. I can replace the individual button, but the button replacements I have make the shoulder button click differently. It's a little louder too. It's kind of hard to explain. It's more of a tactile feel. The button, it feels different then if I were to pair it with an OEM one, there would be like a left and right difference of like, oh, like that's weird. It works, but it's weird. So traditionally what I do is I just get my little cap, fill it full of rubbing alcohol, get that button fully submerged, and then I just click it a bunch. The idea is to get the rubbing alcohol in that housing and get to the button contacts, which you're talking like, I don't know, 3 layers deep of housing, because you have the actual housing and then you have the rubber button that sits over the actual button, which is the little conductive dome that sits over a PCB. And then there's a sticky tape on top of it that sort of seals it in. So to get fluid all the way down to below that little dome, like, you might be able to get away with just spraying outside with contact cleaner, but you're really going to have to penetrate deep, which I think submerging does a good job because pressing down the button squeezes out all the air, and assuming the suction force of the dome reforming to a concave shape will pull in rubbing alcohol. If this doesn't work, then I'll probably have to just put this one aside and make it eligible for button replacement. I think I do have a button replacement, or I replaced a button on a volume, so I could swap the small button on this and then just use that other shoulder cable, so they have new buttons on them, and since they're both aftermarket buttons, they won't feel different. So I got that clean. Having it submerged in alcohol like that can make it give false positives, I've noticed. If it's wet, it's a little more conductive than if it were to be bone dry. I just need to know if I can get anything out of this button. Like, does it have any life, or is it just completely rotted away? It might still be too wet. I might be able to just get away with this, right? Yeah. I'm getting absolutely nothing. Let me just try my original orientation. So I'm thinking that button is just completely eaten away. I'll definitely want to take it apart just for the sake of curiosity. Let me get this thing back together. I need to test the SD card slot. If the SD card slot's good, I'm going to want to save this board. Let me just kind of put it partially together so it's not falling apart on me. I'll just put a couple screws in the SD card slot. Now for testing the SD card slot, the battery doesn't have the cover on it, so I might lose contact like that. This is a little more sensitive. Usually I can just have the battery sitting in there and it's fine. It being that sensitive will probably cause an issue in later testing, but I'll get to that when I get to that. Test the SD card slot. I put an SD card in that has a song loaded up on it. I know the microphone works. I tested that before I put this console together. And it is reading that song perfectly. So the SD card slot's fine. So I'm gonna do a little bit of soldering, it looks like. Let me grab my other button. I don't think so. I should have it in here somewhere. Gotta kind of hunt for it. Pretty sure I replaced the button on a shoulder, or the volume ribbon. I just remember it being kind of a hassle to hold while I tried soldering to it. Oh, here it is. Okay. I'm just glad I'll be able to find a pair for it. I don't have that many of these shoulder buttons left. So, kind of what I'll... Let me grab the shoulder button. So this might be kind of impossible for me to convey, but just physically, the buttons are different. The replacements are white, the OEMs are black. And then I don't know if this will come through. Yeah, even just going off the levels on OBS, the newer buttons are much louder, peaking at about -20 decibels. The OEM buttons are going at about 50 decibels, though that may just be background noise. Yeah, it's about 50. So they are a little louder. I think they're a little stiffer, too. They have more of like a definite click. So if you're a mechanical keyboard enthusiast, I think these buttons are for you. I'll have to make sure that one works. I never actually tested it. I did test for continuity and it was fine. These boards are a lot easier to work with because they're actual PCBs. They're not just like ribbons. Let me kind of get everything set up here. I'll get my solder iron just kind of put together just in case I need to replace a charge port, which I don't think so. None of the battery testing I did told me that the charge ports were bad. but I can always be surprised. Do 300 degrees on my hot air station. Should be in plenty. Alright, I'll do it. For academic curiosity, I think I'm going to pull apart this old one with my microscope. Just kind of see what exactly happened. I have a good guess, because I've seen it a few times, where it's just eaten away. Those contacts underneath that button, just completely gone. I will have to make sure that this button fits. Should. I think it sits a little higher than the old buttons, but that shouldn't impact how it functions. Yep, fits just fine. It almost kind of feels like an older button. It's not as clicky. I'll make that determination if they are different enough. If they're different enough, I'll try and just pick them with an OEM so they sound similar. So let me grab a test on it. Should work just fine. Yep. Beeped twice when I clicked. So let me get my microscope. Get it connected via OBS. There we go. Okay. Oh, there we don't go. Sometimes if I switch sources like this, it will... Okay. So here's the shoulder button itself. It looks like it has some rust on it, which is pretty telling probably what happened to it. Usually, sometimes if they have minor surface rust on it, it's fine. They work. The water damage hasn't gotten down to underneath it. It's going to be a little fluxed up still. Gonna put it on a little piece of paper towel. Now let's get it pried apart. There's these little metal shielding around the side that should just come apart. This is obviously fairly destructive to the button. Okay, so now that the metal's off, the button itself is free. So here's kind of what I mean by the little rubber button. Pull that off. Then there's the actual button itself, the little conductive dome. If I were to press my tweezers on it, it'll depress like that. I think it just got some flux in it, so it's not as perky. I'm gonna grab my sewing needle. And the actual thing that makes the contacts are underneath it. I think it should be held down by a sticker. It could be held down just by friction. I know on the face buttons, they're held down by an adhesive, like transparent like piece of tape. Trying to get under it is kind of a pain. Even with a sewing needle of all things. Oh, almost at it. I don't have to be too careful because... Ooh. Where'd that button go? Oh, that is disgusting. So this should be like a copper color. Instead it's black. Oof. So yeah, this button is just completely gone. I don't exactly remember how they're supposed to look inside. Like the portion, the actual button housing might actually be fine. It's just that this button is just covered in this crap. I'm just kind of curious to see. I'm just going off on a little side tangent here. You have to humor me. So this looks okay, I think. It's got the contacts on both, or it's got the contact in the middle and the ground on the sides. So I think that's okay. It's just this. This isn't. Oh. It's so like gunked up that it's not making contact with the between the center and the ground. Like it looks like it's gonna make good contact with the center, but it can't make any contact with the ground. It's gonna be really hard to try and clean off. Not better. It's not. It's a little better, but from what I understand, the underside of this button is supposed to be just completely like copper colored, not have any of this black on it. This might scratch off the conductive coating, but this is just for pure curiosity at this point. And I could always get OEM buttons. I think I have a couple SD card slots that are just, that need to be salvaged because those ribbon cables were torn, like I was saying. Well, it's not pretty, but I think if it were to make contact, that's going to be about as good as they'll get. All right, well, let's try and Frankenstein this back together. Yeah, it still kind of has a clickiness to it. Put the little nipple in it. I believe these are not. Okay, this goes on like this. Just a lot of me just pushing and clamping. Grabbing my pliers off screen. Okay. It's not pretty. I wouldn't use this button. This button's garbage, but again, academic curiosity. Let me grab my helping hands just to grab the button. This will be kind of hard. I might even be able to use the helping hands as a ground. I think it's connected to it. That'd make my life a whole lot easier. No, it's not making good enough contact. Well, it's worth a shot. So it's inconsistent. Like, I'll be holding down the button and it chirps twice, which it should just be one chirp, one continuous chirp, so it made it better. It at least made it register, but yeah, it was just whatever happened in that button, just rampant corrosion just ate it apart. So now, because I did notice a little difference in buttons, this will be very much a sort of subjective measure that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to put this shoulder, the actual, like, wow. I run out of words for the exact same thing. There's the button, and the button. So the actual, like, button you touch, I'll put that back on. And kind of do a feel test. Okay. So let me hold it up to the mic. So it's got a auditory difference, as well as the newer button doesn't give as much. It's a kind of a hard thing, like, you don't have to depress it as much to click it. Like, here's the OEM button, where you go, click. I don't know if that's even something I can measure. So that's an interesting difference. Let me put my replaced button on here. Or this other volume shoulder button that I did replace the... Probably shouldn't have done that. Take all this out so I don't lose them. Because I have to go into the battery bay and undo a little clip. I didn't test that button for continuity. I'm pretty sure I remember doing that when I first put it in, so it should be fine. It does sit up a little. It's not really sitting in the housing that well. That might become a problem here. I remember having kind of a problem getting that button sort of mounted in a way that would fit. I'll just have to see how it sits in the shell. If it sort of bulges the shell out because it's not gripping down close enough, then that's going to be a problem. Yeah, I'll be quiet. They definitely have a different feel to them. They're a lot shorter travel, and they definitely have more of a thunk when you click them. Like, again, it's so subjective. It's really hard to say. There's not as much travel. The click is a little... I wouldn't even say it's louder. Like, even this one had a pretty loud button. Yeah, it's interesting. So I think this one actually, once I put the screw in it, it sort of leveled out okay. It doesn't seem to impact the performance of the button. So let's get this all back together. Turn off my soldering equipment. So I did say I was going to do multiple consoles, but it looks like I'll just kind of do one console at a time here because this is already taking a long time. I'll do a couple consoles probably today, but they'll be separate videos. It'll be nicer to have one video for each console anyway. Alright, let's... Now, since I was losing contact with the battery, I have no real basis in testing how far I can, like, bend these battery contacts out. I just stuck my dental pick in there and gave them a bit of a tug. Since I'm here, I'm going to remove this old water damage indicator because, well, when I clean these consoles, I remove all the electronics and then submerge the shells in hot soapy water. And then hand clean them with a toothbrush. So, obviously, the water damage indicator on the shell is going to be triggered. I don't think Nintendo cares. Yeah, it's already not wanting to... Well, I spoke too soon. kind of doing some tests here. Just kind of shifting the battery around in the battery bay. When I go up, down, left, right, it's not losing contact, so it's maybe just when it pops out a little, which the battery door would prevent. Let me get my R4 card back in and test the shoulder buttons properly this time. R4 card comes up immediately. That's good. And the volume buttons work, thank goodness, because I've heard this song more than I would like. Alright, so now that's a problem. That is the one with the... Oh. Yeah, I'm gonna have to look at that button again. But the R button works just fine. Yeah, like I said, I had a hard time mounting that button. I'm just gonna have to look at it again. Because now that I put the shell on, I'm guessing it's just not sitting flush against that ribbon cable. It's not even a ribbon cable. I think it's more of like a PCB, small PCB. Yeah. And then here's this thing that's just really hard to grab. I'm going to take it off and then try and put it back on. It looks like I may have mounted it too far forward. When I did this button, I did it quite... It was like the first time I've done a button in a long time. Compare it with my other button. I think I have it in the right spot. Yeah. I may have mounted it a little too far forward. I think that might have been the problem. as I have it balanced on that PCB. There we go. Get a little more solder that middle button. The middle contact is very important. There. Gonna make sure I get all this flux off of it. For no clean flux, it sure does need a lot of cleaning. I don't think any of it got inside the button, but I'm just gonna be better safe than sorry. Really get it flushed out. Let's try the fit again. So far, fits about, kind of looks the same. I'll just put it together. Well, I can click it this time. But when I sort of apply pressure to it, it locks up. Huh. Wonder why that is. So I need to figure out why it's not sitting flush. Once I can figure that out, then I'll know how to fix it so it'll click. So I'll kind of show it, but I'll try to at least. But the PCB, the little PCB for the shoulder button isn't sitting in there flush, it's sitting at an angle. Not supposed to do that. I have to figure out why. What's it getting caught on? Oh, it's because it's a little too far forward still. Okay, I'm guesstimating like a millimeter. Alright. Not a problem. So I'm going to need to push that back all the way to the edge of those contacts. Okay. I'll give that a try. Yeah, that did it. Okay. Sitting in there nice and flush. Okay, I need to get the volume buttons in first. And I think I'm going to clean the shoulder button just a little better. Try and get all that flux off again. My little cap of rubbing alcohol is going down. It's evaporating. My button isn't clicking. I may have melted it. Or it's just... Okay, I think it just had flux in it. Yeah, that feels a lot better. Okay. Alright, it's clicking this time now when I hold the shell down. So I'm going to put this fully together because I just need to confirm that when I have the pressure in for all the screws, that both buttons click. That the normal mounting pressure will allow the buttons to actuate completely. And it's not being hung up. Yep, both buttons click just fine. We'll see if I have that sort of power off issue when I have this cover on. I don't expect, but I'll kind of do a little bit of testing. Yeah, not powering off, so it was just sliding out a little, I guess. Get my R4 card back in. I'm gonna get my solder iron put away. I did that last time, but look how far that got me. I didn't use it that second time I put that shoulder button on, so it should be fine. Alright, so now R button, good as usual. L button. They definitely sound different. It's just what's really interesting is they have a shorter travel. So what I'm going to do is kind of press all over the button. Sort of the middle of the button, the right edge of the button. Sort of like mid-finger presses. Yeah, so I think the buttons are good. I am going to mention that the shoulder buttons were replaced. That should tell me, or that could mean two different things. Shoulder buttons replaced, shoulder buttons replaced, but I'll tell by actually pressing these buttons that, yeah, these are the replacement ones, because they have a definite feel to them. Alright, now like an hour later I can move on to my next trial, which is the touchscreen. I am going to quickly do a calibration on it, just so I can start from scratch, start on the right foot. Okay. Of the various touch inputs I'm doing just to even get into these menus, I think the touchscreen's fine. That doesn't account for any dead zones on the side, which I'll check with this software. Thankfully, this is an OEM touchscreen, so it feels pretty good. What I'm going to do is go along the edges. And what I mean by sort of dead zone on the edges is there'll be sometimes you'll get a touchscreen that's bad, where it'll do touch input right fine, and then there'll just be this big dead area right here that won't receive any inputs. The rest of the touchscreen could be fine, but it would just be like right there would just be bad. So I did the full perimeter, detected the full perimeter, swirls. I don't see any erroneous inputs. So that's good. Next is speaker, microphone, and headphone jack. So I'll usually sort of combo this with the SD card slot, because I have a song loaded up on the SD card. So I'm also looking at the indicator for the volume. It goes up when I want it to go up, it goes down when I want it to go down. Both left and right speaker work. I know the microphone works because I did test it when I put these consoles together. Because any of the components I put in the top screen are... And I hear the bird repeating what I'm saying, so the microphone works. So let me get my headphones in. Also another thing I know works, because when I do my battery test, the battery tester plays a song, and I don't want it just blaring out the speakers, so I just put earbuds in, and I'll check to make sure that the songs are actually playing out the earbuds, but just for the sake of double checking, I'll check both earbuds with this song. And the 8-bit's kind of cool. Yep, and both earbuds work. And obviously, since it can play a song off the SD card slot, that is also fine. Next is cameras. That's another thing I know works just fine, because I test those before I put these consoles together. There's the front-facing, rear-facing. Charge port. I'll do a couple different tests here. Let me grab the charge cable. So what I have is a USB tester. This will just tell me if the console is actually pulling power. Let me orient it. So I'm going to be looking for a couple things. Let me just close it for now. I'm going to focus on the orange light. So let me just plug it in like I usually would. It's drawing power. Orange light is solid. What I'll do is jiggle the charge end, whatever you would want to call this, around. What I'm looking for is if the light blips out, which it doesn't. If it blips out, that means one of the solder joints on the board isn't that good, and they just need to be reflowed. Easy enough process. The other thing I need to check is the indicator. So plugged in, it appears, it's pulling amperage, so the console is charging. And as far as I know, that means it's all charging normally. I'm gonna just leave that right there, because I'll need it for the future. Game card and SD card slot. I've already shown that the SD card slot works. Usually, these SD card slots clip in pretty good. I don't think I've ever had a problem with them. It's usually the shoulder buttons, which usually prompts me to replace them. The one that's more important is the game card slot, though. So let me grab a little medley of shovelware games that I have that I use for testing. So these are just random shovelware games that have come with all of my used consoles. Shouldn't have turned the console off, but... So what I'm going to do is just put in one game card at a time. I'll kind of show my process here. So I'll start with Wonder Pets. So I'm just going to clip it in like normal, like I would if I were clipping in any other game card. Pops up immediately. Then what I'll do is I'll put light pressure on it and shift it from side to side. And just see if the game card will disappear. Which it doesn't. Then I'm just going to give a couple just firm whacks on the back of, or on the front of my hand. And that would be just in case you like accidentally bumped the game card when it's in the console if you were playing it, or if you just like set the console down. The game's still there. So at least Wonder Pets passed. Wonder Pets passed. Tried Bejeweled 3, do the same process. Comes up immediately. Doesn't disappear when I shift. Good. Pampered Pets. I think that one always takes a little bit to show up. Shifting side to side. Okay. Dog Whisperer. Okay. SpongeBob. Okay. Diego's Dinosaur Rescue. And then my last one, Crafting Mama. So yeah, I detect no problems with this game card slot. What I will do, I'll just clean it anyway. Never hurts. So what I do is just take one of the game carts, coat the pins in rubbing alcohol, sort of shake off the excess a little, and then just take it in and out of the console just repeatedly. It will make the game card slot feel a little weird. Like sometimes it might skip an engagement, or the mechanism might skip. Oh, or launch it. Holy moly. I think that's just because some rubbing alcohol is getting onto the actual mechanism, but once it dries, it's all right. Okay. Yeah. My last test is the Wi-Fi, which I've never had a console fail that, and I have to use my phone, which is currently my camera. So I'm just going to skip that. There are a couple tests that I am starting to implement to catch recent phenomena. The first being image retention, which will be me sitting on this DSi sounds menu for about 2 minutes, looking to see if any of the checkerboarding transfers over to the settings menu. Why that happens, I don't know. I think it's just the LCDs aren't refreshing as quickly, it's just getting old. I don't know the science or the chemistry behind all that. But I have a few displays that will retain the image of the checkerboarding, and it makes them kind of miserable to play. It's roughly about 2 minutes, so let me just swap over. I don't see it. At least not to the degree that my image retained consoles had it. So when I refresh the displays, the image kind of pops up for a second, but I've found that to be a very, like, that is very clearly the sort of silhouette of the DSi Sounds app. I found that to be, at least my current understanding, that is an inconclusive. That's perfect. That is normal, or it could just be the screens are starting to get old, which they are old. I think these consoles came out in like 2007, so we're creeping up on 20-year-old consoles. But they're not bad. They work. That's sort of what I'm looking for. Now, another test I need to try is for a fault. I don't exactly know how the fault find for, but it's where the console will sort of bump in and out of sleep. Let me turn the volume up and get Mario Kart DS. Because that one has a fairly pleasant song. So I have no real like scientific way of testing this. I might want to look up what information I was given. So basically what prompted that is I'm having a console returned because a buyer is having this very issue with the console kind of blipping in and out of sleep, which I've never heard of. And I just don't really know how to test. The console goes in and out of sleep randomly when closed. It won't go in the sleep mode. If you lift the lid a tiny bit. So I have to lift it quite a significant bit for the console to actually come back on. So I'm waiting to get that console back to really sort of nail down a testing protocol. Because right now I'm just kind of guessing, but right now I really have to sort of go against the hinge mechanism. Like, it's not going to open up like that on its own. And this is kind of what I expect. Like, I'd never expected that to be a problem because the sleep mechanism is based off of the magnet in the speaker. There's actually a little component right below the A button that's sensitive to magnets. So what I want to do is, this is sort of I've started collecting data on this. What I'm going to do is use my calipers and measure exactly how far in millimeters until the console comes out of sleep. So I need to kind of get it on the edge against the little rubber stopper on the top screen. Open my calipers until the console turns back on. Comes out of sleep mode, I guess. About right there. I'm gonna close it a little until it goes to sleep. Then open it again until it comes out of sleep, and then that will be my final measurement. About right there. So we have about 22 millimeters, which I need to see where that range is on the several that I tested. So on the consoles that I tested, I've had 16 to 23 millimeters. So 22 millimeters is on the high side. And to kind of get a better visual of what I was doing, because I don't really like having a camera pointed at my crotch. So I'll put the caliper there. And then I'll have it resting on, there's a rubber stopper right there on the top screen. Then I'll just gently open and close my calipers. This is all kind of unscientific. Like right now, I just measured 20. And I'm still sort of developing how I want to do this measurement. But for now, I think this console passed. Passed all of the testing that I went through. Got the top screen lens replaced. I can do a little better job cleaning this bottom screen. It looks like it was pretty dirty at one point. Or I'm guessing when I went to replace the bezel on it, when I cleaned under the bezel, probably had a lot of gunk or something. Not that bad. Touchscreen is kind of scratched up a little. You can see it, just a lot of light hair scratches. I can look at it real quick. But sort of the marker of whether or not I think these touchscreens need to be replaced is how bad the scratches are. If my stylus catches on them, which it kind of does a little bit on this bottom scratch. That bottom scratch is a little more significant, but kind of even shine my light on it. Just a lot of hair scratches. And if it impacts any of the, like, if it diffracts light, which none of these scratches do. So it is, I won't give this screen a perfect score, but it is perfectly usable. And it is OEM, which is always a plus. Those, as far as touchscreens are concerned, the OEM ones are the best because they don't have that weird matte finish to them that these replacement screens I get do, which require me to have a screen protector, which is annoying. I think this one was one I tried polishing. I think there's a little bit of compound on the edges of the shell that I can't get out. Try again, but yeah, I just can't get underneath the lip of that shell. Okay, so test one, I'll put a check mark on it. Say that passes.